This is now the second Transformers related recommendation that I've made recently on this channel. However, unlike the first one, Fall of Cybertron, Transformers Devastation is far easier to get your hands on. I suppose you could say I've been on a bit of a Transformers nostalgia trip recently. I even picked up a couple of the new Legacy toys for my shelf. It's a franchise that I've enjoyed for, 30 years now, and I've always thought this game was a great representation of it. Devastation is one of those games that, believe it or not, slipped under the radar for a lot of people. My hope is that someone out there will see this video, pick the game up, and find something new to enjoy. So what is Transformers Devastation? Well, it's tempting to call it a hack and slash game, but really it's much closer to a character action game like Nier Automata, Astral Chain, Bayonetta, or Metal Gear Rising. It was released in 2015 and developed by Platinum Games, which is the same studio behind all of those other games that I just mentioned, so I guess it does make sense that it would follow their formula. It's also worth noting that, like Fall of Cybertron, Transformers Devastation has been delisted from all digital storefronts and cannot be purchased in that way anymore. However, unlike Fall of Cybertron, you can pick up a physical disc for Devastation for PS4 or Xbox One. This means that you can play the physical disc on all PS4 and Xbox One consoles, as well as the PS5 with the disc drive and the Series X, which is great. I picked up my copy of the game on eBay for around £17, which is about $21 I believe, so you shouldn't have too much trouble finding it. The game itself is a relatively straightforward melee-based action combat game that follows a mostly linear story. There are some side quests and some slight deviations that you can follow, but in general it's virtually A to B in terms of story progression. You have the option to play as 5 different Autobot characters, which are Grimlock, Bumblebee, Wheeljack, Sideswipe, and of course Optimus Prime. They're all represented damn near perfectly in regards to their Generation 1 cartoon selves, with some of the original voice actors providing the voiceovers. This obviously includes Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime and Frank Welker as Megatron, but also the likes of Dan Gilvezan as Bumblebee and Greg Berger as Grimlock, which is just great to hear. Each character can be improved by equipping various gear that you loot during gameplay, or by crafting tech which can then be slotted onto each character. Each weapon or piece of tech grants a myriad of bonuses and helpful effects to make you more effective in combat. You'll find loads of weapons during each mission, and these can be fused together to make them more potent, and each character can equip up to 4 weapons at a time. You can even transfer bonuses and skills from one weapon to another, allowing for a huge amount of customization. In order to create tech, you need to play a quick minigame where you simply stop the cursor in the correct spot. The more accurate you are, the better the tech will be. You can also sell most items in the game for credits as well, which then allows you to purchase healing items or perhaps some new combat moves. Each character does have a lot of moves to learn, but the game still feels very easy to pick up and play. You can obviously get through the game using basic attacks and dodges, but on higher difficulties you will need to essentially master the combat system, as is the case in most Platinum Games titles. As you may have noticed, you can actually transform during gameplay, either as part of a combo or just to help you get around the map faster. It even uses the original sounds from the G1 cartoon, which is just brilliant. There's a decent amount of collectibles to find as you progress through the game as well, plus challenge mode levels which you can unlock by fulfilling specific conditions during gameplay. Combat-wise, you have the option to purchase and learn a lot of different moves, but most of the time you'll default to the standard light attacks, heavy attacks, jumps, and dodges, which are all mapped to the 4 face buttons. As you might have guessed, dodging at the perfect moment will slow down time and give you the ability to counterattack, which is so satisfying to pull off. You can also use your ranged weapon with limited ammo to deal with flying enemies if need be. As I mentioned earlier, you can transform at the end of a combo when prompted to execute a ram attack, or you can jump into the air and hold the transformation button to perform a slam attack, both of which are pretty fun to use. You will of course be fighting a lot of grunt enemies, but you'll also engage in boss battles both with standard sized enemies and huge combiners such as Devastator and Menasor. Menasor has always been my personal favourite combiner, although to be honest I like virtually all of them. Superion is cool, Predaking is awesome, Abominus, Defensor, Bruticus, they're all just great. In fact, one of the new toys I picked up was actually Dragstrip, who is a member of the Stunticon team, and it looks like Hasbro is going to release the full Menasor Combiner toy, so, if I'm living in a cardboard box afterwards, you'll know why. And I think that's about all there is to know about the gameplay without getting bogged down in too many details, but let's quickly talk about the visuals and the performance. Despite being released on the PS3, PS4, Xbox 360 and Xbox One at the exact same time in 2015, I still think it looks really good. In all honesty, it's kinda hard to mess up that cel-shaded look. It's an almost timeless art style that works really well regardless of age. I mean, games like Jet Set Radio on the Dreamcast still hold up pretty well today in my opinion, and Transformers Devastation is no different. The characters in the game look like they were ripped straight out of the original 1984 cartoon, with some added flair of course, except funnily enough for Menasor, who seems to be based on the Combiner Wars version of the character. I'm not really sure why they did that. I'm not really a fan of replacing Wild Rider with Off-Road, or including Blackjack as the smaller 6th member of the team, but you know, whatever, he still looks cool in game. The environments are, I guess, a bit bland, but you probably won't spend a lot of time looking at it as the combat is the main draw. I was playing the PS4 disc on a PS5 via backwards compatibility, and it seems to be running at 1080p with 60 FPS, which is very nice indeed. Lastly, there is one thing I need to mention, and that's motion sickness. Some of you guys already know that I get motion sickness to varying degrees in some games that I play, although quite rarely. Well, sadly, this is one of those games. It's what I would call mild to moderate, and it occurs after about, I'd say, 2 hours of play. At that point, I have to stop and go and lay down for a few hours to feel right again, which is not ideal, you know, as you can probably imagine. Funnily enough, I had the exact same feeling with Metal Gear Rising, and after doing some research, I think it's to do with how close the character is to the screen combined with the fast movement. It's sort of a camera issue. It's such a horrible feeling to get, but still I was able to beat both games after playing them in small increments, but obviously that's not ideal. Still though, I just wanted to mention this in case any of you guys out there deal with motion sickness yourselves and you were thinking about picking up the game. In my opinion, Transformers Devastation is an excellent character action game and probably one of the best Transformers games we've ever got. You could say it's a little bit light on meaningful content, but the combat and the adherence to the source material is so spot on that I think it's worth playing through multiple times. Ultimately, if you're a Transformers fan, you've probably already played this a long time ago. That said, a lot of people don't even know about this game's existence, or they've forgotten about it. If you enjoy any other Platinum Games releases but you haven't tried this one yet, I would absolutely recommend that you give it a shot. I mean, it's relatively easy to find, it's not very expensive, and you should automatically enjoy the familiar combat. It's not the biggest or the best game in the world, but it is definitely worth playing, and I for one really don't want to see this one forgotten about. If you enjoy the video, I really hope you'll consider subscribing, and if you like what I do and want to help support the channel, please check out the first link in the video description down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.